as the United States and its allies target Houthi installations inside Yemen. A high-stakes legal battle is brewing at the United Nations. This as South Africa accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza. Amidst global protests, both sides remain entrenched, further highlighting the conflict's complexity and urgency for de-escalation. Our report takes a look at what happened on day one of the hearing.
South Africa has formally accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians. Now, Pretoria argues that Israel aims to destroy Palestinians in Gaza, population in Gaza. They allege Israel is in violation of the 1948 Genocide Convention, which both countries are signatories to. South Africa is also seeking preliminary orders to compel Israel to stop its military campaign in Gaza. Now, let me tell you the genocidal actions listed by South Africa in their legal suit. Now, the killing of Palestinians in Gaza in large numbers, especially children, destruction of their homes, their expulsion and displacement, blockade of food, water and medical assistance to the Strip, the imposition of measures preventing Palestinian births by destroying essential health services which are crucial for the survival of pregnant women and babies. These are all listed as genocidal actions. On the other hand, Israel, it's issued a statement as well, countering South Africa's allegations of genocide. Israeli lawyers who are due to address the court later today. Israel has fiercely rejected South Africa's claim. Its military says they take a raft of measures to avoid civilian casualties. They've included airdropping flyers, warning of imminent attacks, calling civilians' phones to urge them to leave targeted buildings, aborting some strikes even when civilians are in the way, and the Israeli government has repeatedly stated its intention to destroy Hamas, not the Palestinian people. Now let's listen to what the Israeli officials and Prime Minister Netanyahu had to say about the genocidal accusations put forward by South Africa.
First of all, the October 7 massacre is a genocidal act. That's under any international law, and we can talk more about it later. And what South Africa did on October 8th is blame Israel for what happened on October 7th. So what they're saying today is a huge lie. And they're saying that they are not representing Hamas, but you actually, when they open their mouth, you can hear Hamas talking.
What a twisted world, and it is the IDF, the most moral army in the world, which does everything to avoid harming the uninvolved, that is accused by the representatives of the monsters of genocide. The hypocrisy of South Africa knows no bounds. Where was South Africa when millions of people were murdered and displaced from their homes in Syria and Yemen? And by whom? By the partners of Hamas. A twisted world. Where have you been?
Now, let me also tell you when we can expect a decision in this case brought on by South Africa. Now, the ICJ, it could rule quickly on South Africa's request for Israel to suspend its military campaign. This would, in theory, protect the Palestinians from what might ultimately be declared a genocide. But a final ruling on whether Israel is committing genocide, that could take several years.
For more on this, we spoke to our correspondent Jody Cohen on what can we expect as Israel presents its defense at the ICJ.
So on Friday, Israel is presenting its case to the International Court of Justice. Israel has said that it's done more than any other country to protect civilians in the history of warfare. And its points, it says, to the millions of text messages, phone calls and leaflets dropped over Gaza, and an active map that they've created to help Gazans know where the fighting is taking place so they can stay away. But it also says that Hamas is holding around 130 hostages in Gaza, and that Hamas uses human shields and embeds itself in places like schools, putting Gazan civilians in harm's way. Israel also says it's not denying aid into Gaza, that pre-war there were 70 food trucks a day going in, and the other day that there was 100 and says that Hamas is stealing much of the aid that's meant to go to civilians. They're stealing it for their fighters. Now, in terms of ministerial remarks cited by South Africa, Israel is saying that these have been taken out of context, were aimed at Hamas, not civilians, or were not reflected in government policy or IDF conduct. Now, this final ruling from the court could take years to come, but South Africa has called for the court to order emergency measures while this case is ongoing, and we could expect to hear more on those in the weeks to come.
Judy Cohen also told us about concerns over fighting if it could spread in the region.
Right, so we've seen attacks from the Houthis on shipping and aimed at Israel soon after Hamas's 7th of October attack. There's been an uptick in recent weeks, and last night the US and UK responded against Houthi targets in Yemen. Now, the Houthis are saying that they will continue targeting ships in the Red Sea. The Houthis, we know, are backed by Iran, and Iran has said that the airstrikes in Yemen violate the country's sovereignty and breach international law. Now, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has suggested that Iran is the source of the attacks on Israel from 7 different fronts, from Iranian proxies and from Iran itself. And the US, the UK, France and others are calling on Iran to de-escalate.